Ladies and gentlemen, we have the pleasure and honor to show you our project. So we divided our roles, not because this is separated part of my interest and my achievements and Isa, but we arbitrarily decided to divide our roles. So our performance consists of two parts: introductory remarks, main role, and as a presentation of the results of focus group interview and empirical data. This is a role of Isa. So the most important goal of our presentation concerns the description and analysis of changes in symbolic repertoire in Polish-German symbolic domains, defining Polish attitude to German heritage in Poland after 1989 in transformation times. Therefore, we decided to investigate, describe, analyze, and interpret selected Polish-German symbolic domains. In our choice, we took into account the deconstructive character of these domains into myths associated with the German as an eternal enemy of Poland and Poles. The question of breaking Polish myths of the wicked German we raised among local communities inhabiting Polish western and northern territories, named also regained lands, western border lines, where both Polish and German elements in the past, before World War II, coexisted and competed with each other. So one can meet numerous traces of German presence there after World War II in changed European map. And now I want to concentrate on the topic Symbolic Edomites as a visual representation of Germans past in Poland. Today, German minority consists of a little percentage of citizens of Poland, only not more than 0.5%, but the number of Polish symbolic domains, which are representing the past presence of German, is still increasing in historic and cultural landscape of Poland. By the notion of symbolic domain, we understand, according to its author Lech Nijakowski, the significant differences in evaluation of past events and the meaning of symbolic cultural elements connected with claims of recognition of our own interpretation of both history and culture, where fortune group is treated as wrongdoer, blamed for the past, and consequently present social problems. Both groups claim the rights to symbolic places like monuments, sanctuaries, etc., which are closely related to history or cultures. The result of these processes can be architecture. Symbolic domains occurring there take shape of visual past memory representations. In addition, in the case of Polish-German symbolic domains, they constitute the source of breaking perennial myths of eternity in Polish-German relationships. By myth, we mean, according to Jerzy Topolski, a very famous Polish polyhistor, the convictions which are not verified and do not verify, but lasting in social consciousness long enough, deriving its power from two sources. The first one is an interpretation of our world deeply rooted in a given society, and the second is formed by a constant processes related to a scientific development, shortage of tendency to forge once defined assertions, what leads to their standstill and then to their mythologization. The process of forming knowledge, myths, and convictions concerning the past means interpreting Topolski's words attributed the sacred features to knowledge of word deeply rooted in human culture. Myth, as well as history and memory, always has the cultural character of social, symbolic, and of factographic nature. As to the notion of myth itself, its content is progressive. That means it should be considered in continuum of the attributed senses and in relations with verified, differently mythologized social practice of treating the past, from surveying and writing history, building monuments, and celebrating holidays. This is true that social relations in Polish-German past were strongly mythologized, negatively mythologized, especially after 1945, and undergoing gradual changes, especially since transformation times. Now we want to illustrate the process of deconstruction of the myth of wicked German in context of Polish-German reconciliations. Analysis and interpretations of Polish-German symbolic domains, together with the question about the impact of deconstructing the myth of the German seen as the eternal enemy of Poland and Poles, we have found very important 20 years after signing the treaty about good neighborhood and friendly Polish-German cooperative, and in this context, little public debate in this topic in Poland. Analysis and an interpretation of Polish-German symbolic domains, together with the questions referring to their impact on deconstructing myths of the German as an eternal enemy of Poles and Poland, we have considered very important nowadays because of the 20th anniversary of signing the treaty on 17th July 1991 in Bonn. To sum up, 20 years before signing a treaty, one of prominent Polish journalists noted down, Poland and Germany are still dividing themselves. However, in the moment of greatest discord, they were ready for self-correction. German historian Heinrich August Winkler recognized the importance of events from 1989 and years that followed after. He perceived properly that in 1989, for the first time since 300 years, German matters, there is unification of country, and Polish matters, regaining sovereignty, weren't in conflict with each other, but were supporting themselves. On the other hand, Polish-German past was still interpreted as antagonistic, predicting uncertain future. Thus, it didn't stop shaping the present. Anna Wolf-Powązka formulated such a deep diagnosis of Polish-German relationship, writing, parallel to vision of Polish-German neighborhood based on dialogue, there was advanced, especially since 90s, picture of threat from Western neighbor treated as eternal enemy. The authors of this project, connected with political group of national Catholic profile, supported continuation of old communist rhetoric towards Western Germany. The strongly manifested opinion about historically justified invariability of German hegemonic pursuit, German-Russian community of business abusing Poland, and about German neighbors taking advantage of European integration exclusively to enforce their own business to Central Eastern Europe. Their voice in the issue of Polish-German relations was simultaneously directed into political enemy in Poland. This was an element of struggle for gaining and mobilizing voters. After Poland had achieved its most important strategic goals, the apogee of Polish-German dialogue destruction took place. Erika Steinbach and Rudy Pawełka became the heroes of this grandiose conflict. None of the political parties trusted the expert from both countries, whose surveys rejected Russian trust claims. The old picture of Western revisionists dominated public opinion. Fried sowers were in their elements. Foreign policy and image of Western neighbor became the hostages of interpolitical fights. Overall efforts of governments and the part of society actively building civil society were questioned. And now I want to focus on process of deconstruction of the myth of wicked German and local practices of updating German past in the so-called rechained western and northern land of Poland. Analyzing very superficially Polish-German memory of the recent past, one can conclude from the perspective of 2011 that this is the effect of updated Polish national myth with important features of Roman Catholic Poland, Messiah of the nations, Nazi and communist victim, hero fighting with both regimes, and official policy of a Polish state aiming at Polish-German reconciliation. These two tendencies are strongly expressed in public, hide the third tendency in Polish historical policy of recent times, namely regional and local currents, as well as home and private memories. The crucial changes in Polish attitude towards the German take place in these two spheres respectively. These changes, which, though slowly, yet contribute to the deconstruction of wicked German in social awareness and have a different character and goals. On the one hand, there are positive attitudes towards the German and Polish domestic and private memory, where besides the wicked German, we can find memories about the decent German too. On the other hand, there are politics of Polish cities charged with summer image business, where, as in Toruń, the idea of creating the monument of the Night of the Saint Maiden Mary, which in Polish national methodology represents the German, has emerged. It met the strong opposition of conservative politicians, as it remained only an idea. On one hand, it is the local initiative to remind the memory of Bismarck by a public exposition of a boulder commemorating him, for example, in a commission. On the other hand, it is explicit Polish protest against the center against banishing. Polish sociologists and historians describe these changes on the basis of public opinion research concerning memory referring to World War II, carried out in 2009. It is a certain constant tendency that local and regional ways of commemorating the German evoke more controversies on nationwide and statewide scale than in local and regional ones. Alas, it is hard to overestimate the fact these new Polish-German histories, micro ones, supply necessary data and efficiently demonstrates the myth, efficiently deconstructed the myth of the wicked German in many cases. In local, domestic, communal references to Polish-German past, one can see small foreign policies different from the official ones. I think that maybe it's time to turn to our empirical data, because I'm dread of the shortage of time, and this empirical data are the most important in our presentation.
For our projects and researches, this is a few examples of commemoration or reactivalization of German heritage on the Polish area. I mean, especially the Regain lands. It's about Bismarck places of the memory, more controversive in Poland, of course, because it's Prussian history. Local community decided to reactualize this remembrance in Nakomiady. The next one is the change of the name of the hall in Wrocław. German name or Prussian name is Centenary Hall. After all, was a more communistic name, and now we have again Centenary Hall in Wrocław. The next one is very specific. It's cemetery of victims of the Second World War in Wesoła. It's the cemetery occupied by the local community, the Polish people, after the Second World War, with the victims of Auschwitz-Birkenau prisons, German soldiers, and of course Polish victims of the war. And the next one is a central cemetery in Szczecin. It's about the president of the city, and the monument dedicated to the German history of the city. It's a local community in Szamocin founded the place of the memory dedicated to Protestants, yes, in this little town. In it also avec reactualization of the memory of Ernst Hugo Toller. It's a different history. And in Gdańsk, the cemetery, not existing cemetery, founded in 2002. And our research are dedicated strictly the monument of memory in Wrocław. It's non-existing cemetery, Gravitation too. So, complicated and long process of demythologization of image or myth of German as eternal enemy of Poles is better observed from the prospect of monument commemorating previous Wrocław inhabitants buried on non-existing cemeteries Gravitation. Few words about history, German, Prussian, Habsburgs history of Wrocław. During long history of Lower Silesian capital, Wrocław was first of all a part of Habsburgs history, which does not provoke much controversy today, and since 1741 Prussian city, and after Germany, yes. At the beginning of 18th century, due to changes in status, Wrocław became an open city. Previously it was a fortress. In this way it obtained space for development those the middle of century thanks to Frederick Wilhelm IV, romantic on the throne. It enriched itself in buildings in historical style according to rules. It was among other neo-Renaissance House of Silesian states, neo-Gothic building of Court of Justice and Prison, neo-Gothic building of Court of and Royal Palace. Sorry. In the second half of a century, due to the increasing Wrocław's inhabitants number and incorporation of new area of the city, its host undertook new building initiatives. This time it was new building of stock exchange, for example, and building of the post and fire station, but also two new bridges, Royal and Wilhelms, and also electric tramway, etc., a lot of factories, etc., etc. In 1914, in the centenary anniversary of Germans' victory in the Battle of the Nation of Leeds, above mentioned Centennial Hall was built. The German reign under the city finished in 1945. In August 1940, Wrocław was claimed the citadel again. The direct consequences of this decision was order of planned city destruction in the situation of direct treat what happened with the Soviet offensive and invasion of Red Army. With the increasing offensive, the city was abandoned by Germans on mass scale. In 1945 and in the following years, in Wrocław, almost complete population exchange took place. After the war, it was possible to meet, except few Germans and Jews, lots of newcomers from Central Poland, Grand Poland, from territory of the Bucharest, from Lwów. Settlement of the city by Polish population was accompanied by intensive de-Germanization and at the same time the Polonization policy. The result of this policy was almost complete rejection of German heritage in the city. Since 80s, the process of systematic cataloging of German heritage, including also non-existent Wrocław cemeteries, has started. Final decisive achievement in process of updating. In 1945, Polish administration in Wrocław took over 70 cemeteries. From this amount, 44 necropolis after 1950 were recognized and closed down or abandoned. In the period, 2 minutes, okay? In the period between 64 and 65, the following cemeteries were liquidated, and in the case of other, there was a decision to renovate them, which was changed in 1967. We have investigated the reception of the symbolic domain in Wrocław, which is start of our biggest project. Research, we have applied proposing sampling 206 students, history and sociology in Wrocław. That is quantitative method. We have also applied to focused groups interview. In our research, we were interested in 3 problems which showed us the complicated process of demythologization of German as eternal enemy of Poles in local memory. The first problem was connected with the question about ethnic national conflict, understood as historic experience of 20th century Polish conflicts, transferred to symbolic level. The second one has referred to approach of Wrocław citizens to symbolic domain Gravitation too in the context of cultural practices of memory of the dead. And the third is connected with historical knowledge tied with rising of monument Gravitation and participation on this knowledge in recognition of meaning of this place of memory. The first conclusion, the result of our research, is connected with perception of symbolic domain Gravitation through the prism of ethnic national conflict. Although about half of interview noticed the possibility of such a conflict, and also more than half decided that symbolic domain Gravitation did not serve the separation of symbolic place of one group at the cost of the another. The same number of people considered the domain Gravitation as monument's foundation, rigged against traditional nationalistic values. On the other hand, is answer to the question if monument is based on the opposition our stranger, or rather documents complicated history of the city. The interviewed firmly answered improves the complicated history of the city. That's the general question which was domain answer. In our opinion, this is a question of the generation of experiences of young people, our respondents. The most important function, in students' opinion, is cultural practices of worshipping the dead. The second in popularity was the answer-image policy of Wrocław as the multiculturality city. For 12 interviewed, it is the result of historical policy of the state, and for 8, result of applying rules of political correctness, of course. Next important question was whether Gravitation creates new values, and only 25% interviewed noticed new values. Explanation can be fact of strict identification of symbolic domain Gravitation with the duty to commemorate the dead in cultural dimension. So this is a really universal value and not a new, at least. Question concerning new value in Polish-German context, taking also into account the young age of our interviewed, as well as the fact that historical awareness during last 20 years was shaped by policy of Polish-German conciliation. We take for granted that conciliation is something really existing and something which is well recognized. Antagonistic relations between German and Poles from earlier period was not their experience to the same extent as in the case of their grandparents and parents. About historical knowledge as a background of understanding the meanings of the symbolic domain, I will not talk now, but I would like to say just one thing that which is empty, yes, which is missing by young people. It's not the history of Polish-German relationship, because we have we know